Explain to me your relationship with Nancy. How did you know her?
I didn't know her. That's what's really, I guess, unusual perhaps, but it's a shame because she was my neighbor. She lived about a block away, but I didn't know her. I know her through Lisa. I was the president of the Civic Association, and I still am right now. And I knew, I found out probably by about 11 o'clock in the morning that something terrible had happened, and we'd heard that one of our neighbors had been stabbed to death. There were some other crazy things that went on the same day. It was a very chaotic day, and but I didn't know Nancy at all, and only through Lisa. Lisa called and wanted to do something, and what we ended up doing was putting together the vigil and also starting to collect money for a reward fund. It's kind of the only thing we could think of doing.
How did you find out? Did you guys just see police cars in the area, or did you get a call?
I think we probably got a couple different phone calls. That's my recollection.
Did you get a call, as the Civic Association leader, or just, hey, have you heard?
I think it was just from neighbors. No, I'm pretty sure.
What was your initial reaction when you found out?
Horror, obviously. Some degree of confusion, didn't have very many details, but obviously horror. Didn't really know exactly what had happened till much later. The police did give us some pretty graphic details at a certain point, but as time went on. But obviously, we have a lot of Nancy Schmidts in our neighborhood. We have a lot of elderly ladies living alone, not expecting their homes to be invaded, just minding their own business, being good neighbors, and living their lives. We have a lot of people like that in our neighborhood. I know a lot of them, but I just didn't know Nancy.
What is the neighborhood mostly made up of? Is it a lot of elderly women? Is it a lot of Hopkins students?
It's extremely diverse. It really is. We have all ages, all walks of life, all races, nationalities. We just have a really diverse neighborhood.
Would you consider it a close neighborhood, or?
I think that parts of the neighborhood tend to be close. I mean, people, I think, interact more with people on their own block. That's kind of common. And then in a situation like this, this brought a lot of people together. I mean, what Lisa said about the vigil, there were a lot of people there, and people were just so stunned. And she said, in a state of shock. It's absolutely true. So a lot of people who wouldn't normally hang out together showed up on that day. No question.
How long after did you guys do the vigil?
I think it was a couple of days. I think it was probably about 2 days. Yeah, maybe 3 days. But we also, by the time we had the vigil, we were able to announce that we had a substantial sum of money already donated, and we were taking other donations. So right now we have, there's $1,600 in the bank. We can still take additional donations. We can make that money grow. And that is for the person who provides the piece of information that leads to an indictment. That money is there as an incentive. We'd like to make sure that information gets out, obviously. It's there, and that's all it's for.
What's it like for a community when something like this happens and there's no resolution?
Oh, wow. It's tough. It is so tough. You can't do it. You feel so helpless. You can't do anything for Nancy. You can't change what happened to her. Can't turn back the clock. So, people feel helpless and want to do something, and they want to see something happen as a result of what their, of their efforts, and they want obviously to have, I'm not going to say closure necessarily, but they want to have answers. They want to know what happened. And there is also, yes, there's also fear, because right now, the person who did this could be anywhere. The person who did this could be in another state. The person who did this could be in prison. The person who did this could be in a medical facility. The person who did this could be dead. The person who did this could be in our own backyard. We just don't know. So there's that part of it too. But it obviously leaves a hole in everybody's heart. And we can't, like I said, you feel so helpless because you can't do anything to help her. And all we can do for her now is to try to get these answers. Yeah.
What does a crime like this do for your own personal sense of security in that neighborhood?
For my personal sense of security, it doesn't change really anything for me. For my sense of for my sense of the world and who people are and what they are willing to do to each other, it just makes me even sadder. For my own personal sense of security, nothing. It makes me worry about some of my neighbors. I'm a bit of a tough old bird, so it doesn't really, make me feel insecure. But it makes me feel sad about people, about human beings who could do something so brutal to someone. But it happens, and it happened to Nancy, and it's still happening.
Do you feel protective of all those older women that live in your neighborhood since this happened?
Yes, frankly. And I'm sure many people do. Very much so.
Keep an extra eye out on them.
Yeah. As you do anyway. But, yes, additionally because of this, sure.
Because it reminds you of what could happen, I think we forget sometimes. We take advantage, or we take advantage of our own safety, and then we forget that these things are possible.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone has ever suggested that Nancy wasn't doing something right. I don't think nobody's ever suggested that she left her door open or she did something to make herself vulnerable. This was just sudden and brutal, and we don't know why. We just don't know why, and we certainly don't know who.
What are your sort of instinctual impressions of what happened? Do you feel like she was a victim of a robber? Do you feel like she was a victim of somebody who went in there intending to kill her?
I'm not a detective. I just have the sense, I've gone through various stages. Initially I thought this is some drug addict who went in there looking for something. And then I've gone through so many different stages, and I can see just so many different scenarios. But I guess the one thing that strikes me, I always get back to, is the feeling that she knew who it was. I don't know why I have that feeling, but I have the feeling that she could have known who this was, and that maybe she was killed because of that. I don't know. That's just a feeling I have. It's really not based on anything. Because you also hear about these truck drivers. There are a couple of truck drivers who have been picked up for multiple murders, and they go all around the United States, and they get off the interstates, and we're right off the interstate, so it could be anything. It really could be anything.
And that's why I think detectives look at it, is so many different possibilities that they can't limit it to one.
When you don't know where to look, you have to look everywhere. And that's part of, I guess, the enormity of this right now, is task, it's a bit like, the proverbial needle in a haystack. It could be right in our backyard, or it could be anywhere, this answer. So we need people to come forward. We feel that there are still bits of information out there that need to be brought forward and need to be explored. You know what I want? I want, more than anything, I want to touch the conscience of someone who knows something about this. And I don't think it's going to be the killer. Frankly, I don't think the killer is going to be touched at all. I mean, I think the person who did that has no intention of ever being caught. But I want to touch the conscience of someone who knows something, because that person hasn't done what needs to be done. And that person, I want to implore that person to come forward and do the right thing.
Well said. I know that you had said that there were some community meetings with detectives and with, can you describe some of the things that were talked about?
Well, people have a lot of questions. People have, one of the things that I hear a lot of people say is that a lot of people express the thought that if she was so brutally murdered that it might have been something personal. I've heard that. That's what you hear from a lot of residents. But the police did, after a while, they told us some details that were kind of, I don't know, surprising, shocking. My understanding is that the murder weapon, a knife, I don't remember whether it came from the house or not, but that it was found in a tree. It was actually thrown up into a tree. It was stuck in a tree.
In her yard?
No, on the street, and that one of the residents actually discovered it. But my understanding was that the forensic, I think he told us that the forensic evidence that they waited a long time to get really didn't give them anything to really go on. That was my impression. Surveillance
Did it have her blood on it? Did it have her blood on it?
You know, I don't even know that detail. I don't remember that detail. There was a surveillance camera in the area that picked up nothing. Maybe more than one surveillance camera. We understand that the killer came in through the back from the alley, and I believe that's supposed to be the same way that he or she went out. She was stabbed multiple times. We heard that. It was so disappointing after months of the testing, the DNA testing, or the forensic testing, to find out that there was so little for them to go on. Very disappointing. I think we had high hopes for that. I think we all thought that something was going to happen. You know, they'd be able to match it with something they had on file, and we'd have some answers.
If you are a drug addict or someone mentally challenged or you know, all those sort of different factors, to be able to get away with something like this seems almost impossible. It seems to me that these kinds of factors lead you, or would lead me to believe, just as a civilian, that the killer was somebody either who planned it out and had thought about what to do with evidence, or B, was a very experienced criminal. Did you feel the same way?
I don't think I did, really, because I think that the time frame could have been very, very short, and people were, I think there was a certain amount of chaos, and neighbors were hearing things, and Nancy was calling out, is my understanding. People heard her call out, and they were trying to call 911, and they might have been looking to the front of the property. Meanwhile, the person may have been coming out the back. I don't know. I guess in my life, I've seen stranger things happen where, you know, you think something would be, somebody would not slip past, and yet they do. I guess it doesn't surprise me quite as much. It was also raining very heavily that morning, and I don't know whether that would have, you know, helped or hindered someone trying to get away. But I think there must have been a tremendous amount of chaos, and somebody slipped away unseen.
Were there any neighbors that you know who had seen cars in the area or had come forward about anything like that?
No, the neighbors in that immediate area were all trying very hard to rack their brains to come up with anything, and whoever had any observations to make right there in that immediate area, it did so to the police. They heard, mostly I think what I feel was that they heard, but they didn't see. But they would have, they would have said anything that they had to say. But, alleys are tricky. I mean, criminals can use alleys very effectively. I've even witnessed, the next door house to mine being burglarized and actually seen the guys getting away through the alley. Alleys are used by criminals very effectively, and a lot of people get away. A lot of people get in and out of people's houses and are never seen by using alleys.
Why do you think that is? Because they're poorly lit, or?
I don't know. I guess it's a time-honored practice of. I think they're poorly watched. There are probably fewer people at any given moment with their eyes on an alley than there are with their eyes on the street. I probably could come up with a better answer to that if I had more time. But now alleys, if people are trying to get in and out of houses, they will often go up and down the alley.
And then just one final question. The weather, can you describe to me what that morning was like?
It was raining. It was raining that morning, and the idea of the knife being up in the tree would lead you to think that the knife was being rained on, just like everything else was being rained on. So maybe that helped the killer get away for that time. But we need to know who that person is. We need to know who did it and why. And like Lisa said, we want justice for Nancy. It's a phrase that kind of has a bitter meaning, but because you really can't have justice. You can't find justice for Nancy, but this is the best we can do. So we're trying to do it. And we appreciate your help.
Well, we can help. Is there anything else you wanted to say or add?
Just that we are, we do have a reward for someone who provides the key piece of information. If that's an incentive, fine. It's there. That's what it's for.